There was one scene in Mount Hua that completely changed how I viewed the entire story. And it wasn't a fight, it wasn't Chung Myung, the protagonist, instead, a random beggar adopted disciple of the Mount Hua clan. This scene showed how he went against the orders that were given to him, to stay hidden, and instead chose to help the kids in needs because that's what he believed that he needed to do, not something, that the plot needed him to move forward, choosing to take matters into his own hand to do what he believes that he needed to do. Okay, so he saw these starving kids and he chooses to help them. He gives them food. He sells his own sword to feed them. It wasn't like someone ordered him to, or rather he was ordered to not to reveal his identity, but they created so much chaos in that their identities were revealed. When the beast clan sect master asked him, why did you do that? Why did he save those kids? He was like, do I need a reason to save these kids? So this is where the writing becomes interesting, because Mount Hua didn't tell him to sacrifice himself. It wasn't something Mount Hua forced him to do. It wasn't in the rules, and no elder told him that, but still, why did he do that? I feel it's genuinely because he realized in himself that it was his own responsibility to do that. It was his responsibility as a martial artist, as someone who held the Mount Hua sword. You can help someone if your own life isn't in danger, but imagine you're in enemy territory and your goal is to stay hidden, but you saw the situation, you don't know where the kids are hungry, and the plan may patch itself afterwards, but these hungry kids, this problem needs to be solved. He realized it in himself, the values that hold Mount Hua. Now he doesn't need rules, he inherently knows the principles behind what Mount Hua actually stands for. Imagine just a simple side character was able to realize so much by himself through his own experiences. And also why this scene feels so much real, his entire growth has nothing to do with Chung Myung. Chung Myung didn't give him once in a lifetime motivational speak or something. It was definitely his own experiences, his own thoughts. Chung Myung has his own path and has his own things to take care about, but this kid, we didn't even see him. In that time, he thought to himself what he can do so he can function as a group in the most effective manner. The senior disciple in the Mount Hua Sect, when they first met, he was so overconfident. He has his own goal to become the sect leader of the Mount Hua. He was like, yeah, I can definitely become that. I will become the core disciple and the sect leader. And his overconfidence, Chung Myung shows up and he beats the arrogance out of him. Later what happens is, he didn't change in one single time. He was like, Chung Myung forced him to basically to train, and later, as they were journeying slowly, little by little, this senior disciple, just changes from this arrogant to someone who knows his responsibilities as their senior disciple. He takes care of them. There he is, representing the sect leader of the Mount Hua, and he acts that way. Even if he's not the strongest is Chung Myung, but he knows his own responsibility. When Chung Myung came to the Tang clan, he didn't welcome his because his goal, the Tang clan sect leader's goal, was to have him and push back the elders in his clan, because the power of elders was rising, and he wanted someone to destroy that. When he goes to Beast Sect Master, what happens is he looks like a really cheerful big guy who's stupid enough to welcome all of them, and they didn't have enough money to offer them all this food. He had a different plan in regarding to this. His plan was he wanted to form relationships with the Central Plains, because he knew the problems of his own people. It wasn't like he was blind to these things. He didn't find someone worthy enough. So when Chung Myung and his party came, his plan was to establish trade with the Central Plains. So all these different people, the Tang clan, the Beast Sect Master, the sect leaders, the senior disciple, all these guys had different plans. They didn't exist to support the MC. MC came and somehow, and on a mutual agreement, they helped each other out, and it worked out, right? What makes the return of the Mount Hua so special is the word doesn't exist simply for Chung Myung. The people don't stop living their life because Chung Myung entered. People have their own beliefs, people have their own fear, and Chung Myung simply enters and crashes into their lives, and through some kind of mutual agreement, they simply help each other out. When the side characters feel like people, feel like characters instead of plot devices, that's when that it is a good story.